Hey, how are you? My name is Algir Perez and welcome to Shift 101. In this video, I will share with you why you should stop trying to be extraordinary and maybe you can start living an extraordinary life. At 16, I started college, 2 years ahead of the curve. And then at 21, I had my own business in the fashion industry in Los Angeles. I was living the life. Cool friends, cool clothes, fashion shows, parties, traveling around. I was driving around with my vintage sports car and occasionally rubbing elbows with the celebrities at the clubs. I was living the life that I defined was extraordinary. Yep, I was feeling kind of special. At 23, 2 years later, it happened. My business went bankrupt. I was broke. And not only did I lose my business, I lost face. I felt I was a disappointment with my family and friends, and I felt so ashamed. My biggest fear came true. I had to confront that I'm ordinary. All the stuff that I had before, I was a fraud. I was destined to live a life of mediocrity and insignificance. And in my view, that is a life of failure. And with all of that, I tried to be positive and I tried to pretend that I got it all together on the outside. All the while, privately in pain, filled with anxiety and ever questioning my value as a human being. As early as I could remember, I was always told that to make it in life, I have to be extraordinary. As a matter of fact, when I was growing up, my parents and teachers told me I was kind of special. And at some point, I started believing that. And this was reinforced when my parents moved us from the countryside of the Philippines to the US in California when I was 12. I was a fish out of water. I had to prove my worth. So this thing about being extraordinary and being exceptional was the game. It became very important. Yet no matter how much I tried, somehow it felt short. There was something missing. So I was still driven to do more. Yet I wasn't entirely clear why I was doing it. So this thing about being extraordinary always felt like it's just around the corner and I'm determined to get there. So mind you, at 21, it felt like I turned that corner. After the fall from grace, I was so obsessed to get back what I lost. I wanted so much to have that extraordinary life again, to get back to the glory. The following years were such a struggle. I felt an enormous pressure to compensate for the failure and make life better for me. So everything I did somehow felt short. I tell myself, hey, you may not be exceptional right now, but it's coming. You're going to get there. So I vacillated between hope and desperation, between ambition and shame. And then once in a while, I will hear something or read something motivational, and then I'll back to being hopeful again. So one of my biggest disappointments in life is that I will never amount to anything. No, I will not leave a mark in this world, and I will not make a difference. Because I believed that the person that can do that is someone who is my idea of an extraordinary person, which I'm not. So I tried so hard to be one. Yet the more I try to be extraordinary, the more I'm present that I'm not that I'm actually mediocre. It took a few years before I got off this spinning wheel. I had an epiphany. What I saw is that this thing that I'm chasing, this extraordinary thing that I'm chasing, it's all an illusion. It was a sham. And I was the idiot chasing my own shadow. So when I got that, I got freed up. I really got that I am ordinary. And so what? So now let me share with you the 3 things I learned in the process of letting go this obsession to be extraordinary. Maybe we need to consider that there's no such thing as extraordinary. Maybe our desire to define it, or our desire to find examples of it, or create prescriptions of how to be extraordinary actually prevents us from accessing being extraordinary. What if extraordinary is a space, like a fluid state of being? You're either in it in the moment or you're not. See, what if it's not fixed? What if it's not something to become, or some accomplishment to do, or some finish line to get to? What if, moment to moment, we have the possibility of being and acting extraordinary? So here are the 3 things that I learned. 1, wanting to be extraordinary makes you not. Here's the logic. There's something out here called extraordinary, and I want to bring it here where I am. So the logic is, whatever I want means I don't have it. That's why I want it. So every time I want something, it validates that I don't have it. So if I want to be extraordinary, it validates that I'm not, which makes me want it, which reinforces that I'm not. So it goes something like this. You feel you're not enough, so you strive for something. And when you strive for something, it validates that you're not it. So what do? You try to strive for it, which validates that you're not it. So you strive for it more, which now reinforces that you're not it. You are now in a vicious circle, my friend. So wanting or striving to be extraordinary just reinforces that you're not it. And that leaves you with a constant experience of not being enough. So 2, when we strive to acquire certain traits or characteristics that we like, that we think is extraordinary, or we strive to produce results that we think should be extraordinary, we are only left with the notion or the idea or the concept or the description of what it is to be extraordinary, rather than the actual experience of it. Consider that most, if not all of us, have had moments in our life where we were freaking extraordinary. But it was by accident. It was some circumstance that pushed us to be acting and being in an extraordinary manner. Okay. Think of a mother running into a burning house to save her children. Many of you can probably remember a time when you were being and acting outside of your ordinary self. Maybe you were involved or engaged with some arduous task, or you were transcending some difficult situation. Someone watching you may comment that you are being extraordinary. They may be able to describe the traits and the characteristics or the accomplishment that they think is extraordinary. So in other words, what it is to be extraordinary only shows up in the conversation of the person observing the action. They may be saying things like, oh, that is bold, that's relentless, that's powerful, that's strong, that's clever, that's kind, that's authentic. All of these things describing what's happening. And they're saying these are extraordinary things. But I want you to notice something. I want you to notice that where it's all happening, where the action is happening, let's say you're doing the action, you're not having a conversation about what it is to be extraordinary. At that moment, you're not deciding to be extraordinary. Okay? You're not checking off a checklist of what it is to be extraordinary. You're not making decisions to be bold or to be relentless or to be determined. No, none of that's happening. You are simply being and acting. So here's what I want you to get. In the presence of being and acting extraordinary, there's no talk about how to be extraordinary. But where there's a lot of talk about how to be extraordinary is not present. So 3, striving to become extraordinary puts extraordinary in the future, someday. Albeit almost there, it's never here now. And because life is only lived now, you will never be extraordinary. We think when the right circumstances happen, that's when we will be extraordinary. We say things like, when I'm powerful enough, when I'm courageous enough, when I'm strong enough, when I can finally step up in front of 1,000 people and speak, that's when I'm extraordinary. When I can have enough charisma to influence people, when I have enough money or fame or authority, then I'll be extraordinary. When I can finally have lots and lots of following and lots of subscribers, then I'll be extraordinary. Or when I get this award, then I'll be extraordinary. Or when I can have the relationship with my dreams, then I'll be extraordinary. We're always saying these things to ourselves or even to other people. When we try to emulate someone or we try to develop traits that we think are traits of an extraordinary person, or we try to accomplish something that we think is an extraordinary accomplishment, it puts us in this particular future where finally something will happen. And when this thing finally happens, that's when we are extraordinary. But the key word is finally. It's not now, but at some point later. This moment that we're calling finally happens at some point someday. And for the optimistic, it is sooner than later. But either way, it is an illusion. There is no someday. Nobody has been to someday. So here's the problem. Extraordinary happens someday. There is no someday. Therefore, you will never be extraordinary. Stop trying to be extraordinary. How about just being an ordinary person, doing some extraordinary actions? Maybe it's those mundane moments in life that are opportunities to be extraordinary. Maybe waking up every day, going to work, and giving your best is extraordinary. Maybe standing up and talking in a meeting, even when you're so nervous, is extraordinary. Maybe doing your boring routines over time in the gym, even when you don't feel like it, is extraordinary. Maybe being kind and loving to your husband or wife, even after an argument, is extraordinary. Maybe admitting you're wrong and saying I'm sorry to someone you care about is extraordinary. Maybe acknowledging your mistakes and doing something about it instead of making excuses is extraordinary. Maybe saying how are you and actually being interested in the answer is extraordinary. Maybe helping a stranger in need without asking for anything back is extraordinary. Maybe thinking of the welfare of another person instead of your own self-interest is extraordinary. Maybe taking a risk and creating something new even if you don't know how it will turn out is extraordinary. Maybe trying time and time again after failing is extraordinary. Maybe suspending your judgment and actually listening is extraordinary. Maybe simply accepting yourself as you are is extraordinary. I know I'm not special. I know I'm ordinary, and I can and do make a difference, and so can you. So, what extraordinary thing can you take on? Make a comment below and share with me what you're up to. If you get some value, punch the like button, and don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell. And also, watch out for other videos leading to this matter. Okay, that's all for now. I will see you in the arena.